Olá, boa tarde a todos, sejam bem-vindos a mais esta conversa. Hoje vou estar com um grande amigo nosso que é
Sejam bem-vindos a mais esta conversa. Hoje vou estar com
E esta será uma conversa que teremos em inglês. So, I'm going to speak in English. But Ohnemuller is a high-performance business coach, a visionary man that helps people succeed in business world and in life. And Bert has this passion for people. In his latest book, Lead Hearts, Speak the Truth, Inspire Souls, he passes on his personal life success and shows with practical tips and authentic examples that hidden in each of us, hidden desires and dreams. And that is never too late to be on the way to fulfillment in life and work. It is a source of inspiration for the present decade of humanity, which calls for new perspective on leadership, teams, and business success. Thank you for your presence, Bert, in this conversation. And I've read your book 3 times, and every time I read it, I find something new, something that helps me with my activity. What is the secret behind these inspiring words?
First of all, I want to say thank you so much, obrigado, Heitor, for having me, and I say hello to all our visitors all around the globe, and it's a great privilege to be with you. And you know, I really can't answer your question because it's only my personal experience. The book Lead, Speak, Inspire is, I would say, a combination of scientific insights from neuroscience, evolutionary biology, positive psychology, but it's also very, very autobiographically. And to be very honest, as Bert, as a human being, I simply wanted to understand, is there something, a secret, a recipe for a fulfilled life? And when I think about the title, Lead, Speak, Inspire, I can tell you in life and in business, these 3 elements were mostly the challenging ones: leadership, communication, and finally inspiration. So I'm very happy that you like the book and that you have read it several times. I'm very happy also. I had a lot of self-doubts when I was writing it.
Yes, and it was an honor for us to be with you at Nova this year, and as well 2 years ago you've been also there making the presentation of your book and also giving a workshop that it was amazing in all the levels. I would like to start with this statement you write in your book. You say leadership or start with the man in the mirror. Please, I think this is such a metaphor that I would like you to express something about this.
Yeah, I think leadership is so crucial because everybody talks about leadership and you have to be a great leader. And you know what? I spent more than 10 years in the corporate world for the big corporations, in FMCG, the Nestle's and the Procter & Gamble's. And I became an entrepreneur. And, you know, I had a team of more than 30 people, but nobody gave me a real instruction how to be a good leader. So I tried to be a good leader, and I compare it a little bit with trying to be a good parent, trying to be a good father, so to say. But when it comes to leadership, I learned a lesson, and this is the line. I learned a lesson from a musician, Michael Jackson. I know that, you know, I don't want to talk about Michael Jackson, but I want to talk about the song. There is this song which was always in my head, you know, Start with the man in the mirror. But when you listen consciously to the words he says, if you want to make a change, start with a man, or I like to add, start with a woman or with a man in the mirror. This is the essence of leadership. The essence of leadership means always self-leadership.
Yes.
Only if you are able to lead yourself, you have the, how can I say that, the right, the ability to lead others. And this is something nobody told me. And what does it mean to lead oneself and lead yourself? So therefore, I believe this. I took the line from the song because I think this brings it to a very, very specific and very clear point. Leadership starts always with self-leadership.
Yes, as well, in your book, you have a chapter speaking about emotions. And you say that emotions have the first and the last word. Can you say something about this?
Yes, every topic you mention, Heitor, is so big that I have to be very disciplined, because I could speak about hours about each topic. But leadership and emotions, this is also a very great bridge, because when I started 10 years ago to better understand how reality comes into our mind, I started to understand that we as human beings, and I'm talking about us, all of us as human beings, we are not rational thinking machines, but we are feeling individuals. The feeling, the emotion is the power behind each decision. So when I think about this famous Portuguese man, Antonio Damasio, who is very inspirational when it comes to neuroscience and modern interpretation of neuroscience, he had a book which called Descartes' Error. What does he mean? He means it's not about, I think, therefore I am. It's I feel, therefore I am. So we are much more feeling machines with the ability to think, which is great. And emotions are the energy which moves us. And emotions happens normally on a very, how can I say that, basic level, because it's a physical sensation. We are emoting all the time, and our emotional autopilot always asks, and it's like a radar, it's like a scanner, scanning the environment. Is there a threat which we have to avoid, or is there an opportunity for food or something you need for survival? And this is very important. We are emoting all the time, and this is the quality we have to keep in mind, because you are in a different, how can I say that, mental state. You perceive differently when you are in a negative emotion in comparison when you are in a positive emotion. So emotions is the power which we have to understand.
It means that the emotion drives our decisions or influence our decision most of the times.
Absolutely. Emotions, every decision needs an emotion.
Yeah.
And the most important decisions we make in our lives are pure emotions. Think about how you find your partner for life, or how you make the big decision where you want to buy your house, or where, even now in summertime, where you want to spend your vacation and things like that. These are all emotional decisions. And the funny side is, afterwards, your mind tells you why it was rational, this emotional decision. So it's really interesting, but it's always an emotion. And even when I think about my business background, which is mainly fast-moving consumer good industry and retail, every purchase decision is a decision based on an emotion. There was an emotional arousal, ideally in a positive way. And if there is a negative emotion, I tend not to make a decision. I run away. But this is very, very important what you said, behind every decision is an emotion.
You spoke about your own company. I would like to ask you what happened because I think you made this big transformation in your life from the past to the present. Can you share with us something about
Yeah.
your private life regarding your businesses?
My private life, normally in an introduction, I always like to say I'm Bert Ohnemuller, Bert Martin Ohnemuller, and I'm only a human being. And this makes us, I would say, so equal. Because what I found out traveling through a lot of countries, we as humans share much more similarities than differences. But I'm also a husband since a rather long time. I don't know how my wife could stand that, but probably because we are happy parents of 4 now adult children. But when you ask me what happened, I can tell you, I always wanted to find out what I said before, what is the meaning of life and what is the purpose. Today we talk about purpose. And I feel like being in my third or fourth career path. You know, after having this manager career in the corporate world for more than 10 years, I founded a sales promotion agency. We grew up to 30 people plus. We had more than 1,000 freelancers. I spent day and night in my office. I could not see my children. And I thought, I have to be successful in order to be happy. And successful for guys means making money. So imagine you make money, imagine you are successful in the eye of the society, but it does not feel as I did not feel like a success. And 20 years ago, I already asked myself, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And I start trying to find out what inspires me, what is probably my calling.
Yeah.
And after working a lot with scientific people, I believe, this was what you said in your introduction, I believe my calling is probably not only helping, doing a sales promotion, something which is probably very interesting, but I believe that my calling is to help people, teams, and companies to unlock the potential which is inside of everybody and every team and every corporation, but which can only be unlocked when we have a better understanding about us as human beings. And so this made I always try to listen to the inner feelings and try to find my own purpose, my own meaning. I always had this dialogue with the man in the mirror, which was Bert Ohnemuller.
Yeah. I have been thinking about an expression I heard from you. We are living a decade of humanity. Why do you think we are living this decade of humanity? And can you make this correlation with the days we are living now with this COVID pandemic as well?
The decade of humanity is my mission, if I may call it this way. And I have probably 2 simple observations. Also, I learned a lot of methodologies, tools, techniques, as an entrepreneur, as a manager, as a human being. I want to bring it to 2 points. My 2 basic observations are, first of all, business has always to do with people. Even in an online business, this is a digital conversation, but these are human beings, this is people. So I believe, and this is only my belief, nobody should believe something I believe, but this is my belief, business has always to do with people. Point number 1. Point number 2, and this was also an observation I made through the last 3 decades of my business experience, I found out that the quality of your business depends very much on the quality of your relations. And the most important relation is the relation to the one you see in the mirror again. You see, there is this connection. When you ask me now about the decade of humanity, my belief is that humanity and, or let me put it this way, being human and being profitable is not a contrary, but a logic, a consequence. And when I talk about the decade of humanity, I don't talk about a romantic concept. Decade of humanity is not only romantic, it means better understanding who we are as human beings. Why do we think the way we think? Why do we feel the way we feel? Why do people behave the way they behave? And I would like to go one step deeper, because the mission decade of humanity is built on two huge dreams. And I dream about a world where people do what they really love. Can you imagine such a world? And I believe that everybody is somebody. Everybody has something nobody else has. This is what I learned from biologists. The logic of life is uniqueness. And my second dream might sound even a little bit more crazier. I dream about a world where companies, corporations, organizations are role models for the society. And this kind of business I would like to call value-based business. So I believe that we need to have a value-based business, and the purpose of business is not longer be making money, but delivering a purpose and a meaning for the entire system, because I believe there is enough for everybody. But probably this is a crazy belief. But the decade of humanity is really a mission, and I would love to invite everybody, because it's not about better, it's about finding better ways to do business. And everything I learned from neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and especially positive psychology proved that we need to have a better understanding of human beings. For instance, how do we deal with emotions? What happens when we are scared? What happens when we are in a good mood, etc., etc. So this is everything scientifically is behind this mission of the decade of humanity. Better ways in business, better ways for societies, value-based business. This is what I would like to share with you and all the observers and participants. And the decade is really simple. And may I say one more sentence, because it's really funny. Everybody was, it came into my mind when I have written this book. So approximately 5 years ago, the decade of humanity already popped into my mind, and I was always speaking about decade of humanity, and people were always a little bit, how can I say that? They asked me, yeah, Bernd, when will it start, the decade? And so I try to find a starting point. And you know what? It sounds a little bit weird, but I determined the 20th February 2020 for the beginning of the decade of humanity. So more or less 1 year ago. The 20th of February 2020, a beautiful date. 20th, 2002, 2020. But nothing happened. But 3 or 4 weeks later, excuse me for using these words, 3 or 4 weeks later, a big ally came around the corner and kicked us in our, where it hurts, and Corona came. And this is, I think, the pandemic is a huge call, or let me call it a huge wake-up call for
Yes.
us all. And I think business and everybody has received this invitation to reflect, to sit down for a moment. It was like a huge global invitation to go inside, because this was the lockdown. We have to go inside and reflect and think about, is this the world we want to have, or are there probably better ways? So I think the decade of humanity is more than ever extremely relevant as at least a proposal or an idea for a potential better way.
Yes, I agree with you totally about what you said as well. When you said value-based business is equally people, okay? And I heard from you also this sentence that always put me thinking about it. The true currency is trust. Uh, can we find trust now?
Trust.
Yeah.
Trust is the one thing which changes anything.
Okay.
And trust for me is like water in the nature. When you have water in the nature, you have growth. When you have no water, you don't have growth. And the big question is always, when you think about trust as a currency, I think, and this is also something which is so obvious, and sometimes we just have forgotten that. Even in a good communication, in a good conversation, first you have to connect, and then you can convince. You can't do business or a relationship without trust, right? Think about when I said, business has always to do with relations. So trust is really the one thing which can change anything. And here comes the big issue. You can only give trust if you trust yourself.
Yeah.
This was one of my really big insights as a human being, as Bert. You can't give away what you don't have. And when we talk about trust again, in the how can I say that, in the connection or in the context of values, I think this is such a key value, because in a trustworthy relationship, you are always much more efficient, for instance, than in an untrustworthy relationship. Imagine you trust your team. You don't need to have a lot of meetings. You trust them. You give them the how can I say that, the tools and the environment that they can make own decisions, fast decisions, fast business, so to say. But if there is no trust, you have a lot of control and a lot of, and this is what we see in every day. And
Yes.
again, trust and values. When we don't have values, when we don't have a similar understanding about values, how can we develop a business? How can we develop a family? How can we develop a society? So I think this is so crucial, and trust is really the key component. There are some others, but I would really how can I say that, say this again, because therefore I always say, even in a business, when you look into your accounts and when you are happy that you have probably made some money, I believe that this is always in a certain way the expression of the trust you have received, because people trusted in your team, people trusted in your services, etc.
Yeah.
And probably I have to say that there are a lot of ways to do business in an untrustful. You can cheat, you can do a lot of things, but my belief is, on the long run, you should never cheat, because there is this highway, which I call the highway to hell. This song from AC/DC?
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably therefore they call it highway to hell. There is a
Yeah.
highway to hell, and there is this rough road to happiness. And don't use the highway, and be very, very cautious, because trust Trust is the biggest treasure we have. It's like a glacier in the mountains. It takes thousands of years to become a glacier, but 2 hot summers and it melts away. So this is something we have to protect. But once again, I want to say, everything you want to give, everything you expect, you have to give to yourself first.
Yeah, definitely. We have here a question. Paula asks, what about if I can do what I love is harmful to others? Who then dictates what is good?
Yeah, this is a great question, Paula. What about, I have to read it again. If I
Yes,
can do
please.
what I love is harmful to others. This is a really interesting question. Who then dictates what is good? I think it's not probably, if I try to answer it, probably it's not, first of all, it's not about what is good or bad, because good or
Yeah.
bad is a perspective. I always like to say to my wife, do you want to be right? Ines is her name. I always say, Ines, do you want to be right? Or do you want to have a happy life? And she
Yeah.
always says, I want both. And this is typical. But you know, when you ask this question, it really makes me think, because I learned from biology, and especially from evolutionary biology, that we as human beings are empathic creatures. Empathic creatures mean we try to avoid to harm somebody.
Yeah.
And biologists told me 98% of the newborns are empathic creatures who are there to help each other, who are there to you know, who are social creatures. So sociality is for us something which is very important. So, and there is only a small amount of people who are probably not as social as we expected. The science talks about psychopath, you know, the phenomena of psychopaths. But normally, if you would love to do something which is harmful to others, I don't know whether we should have probably a conversation. Why are you doing that? Because, you know, but probably I didn't get the question. Think about, yeah, what could it be? So probably we have Paula shall raise another one, or try to give us an example what you really mean with being harmful. Because you know, what pops into my mind, probably in the times of colonies and imperialism, people said, it's good to, you know, to take everything away from certain countries because I want to have it, I love it. But this is not what I mean when I talk about humanity. What I mean is, you know, it has a lot to do with mutuality, with understanding the basic emotional needs of everybody. And Heitor, you talked about trust. It's not only trust, it's also something which is called belonging. We as human beings need to belong. So when we have this need of belonging fulfilled, suddenly we feel loyal. We are loyal because the feeling of belonging releases a certain biochemical in our brain, which is called serotonin. And the other one is like, again, every human being needs purpose, a purpose for life. And more or less, the first element I'd like to add is every human being needs joy, because joy is the ingredient how to find your own purpose. And joy is the ingredients how to unlock something which is inside, because when you like what you do, when you are passionate about what you do, you definitely will receive better results. And when you think about these four elements, I don't find space for being harmful in this way.
Yes,
so,
and Paula asks, say, for example, pedophilia.
Yeah, pedophilia. I think This is when pedophilia means something is not working. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, but I would say if you have difficulties, or if you have a desire for this, I think this is a case for the doctors, for the psychologists, because something is not working. Because I think this is, at least in my eyes, it's quite a tough example, but let's put it like it is.
Do you listen in order to answer, or do you listen in order to understand? This is something very interesting to answer to ourselves. What you mean, or what you intend to say when you said this sentence, Bert?
Again, a great question, Heitor. Thank you for that. My inspiration came from a lot of inspiring teachers, and one of my most inspiring teacher in the early days of my corporate world was Stephen Covey, and his famous book of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the 8 Habit, and the third alternative. What I learned from Stephen, he told me something about communication. And I worked in sales in those times, and I asked myself, how can I become more successful? And you know what? I like to speak. But when you speak, you don't hear what anybody else is telling you. When you speak, you cannot learn something new, because you only say what you already know. And there was this beautiful idea that I learned from Stephen about the so-called paradigms. We all have so-called paradigms. Let me call them mental maps in our mind. Behavior. So probably there was this behavior of I have to speak in order to convince somebody. So the intention was to speak or to answer. And then he said, but you can shift the paradigm. If you would shift the paradigm in terms of change your intention, not to say something, but to listen, to understand. This was what inspired me to this chapter, because nowadays I have the total belief that in order to achieve a great communication, you have to have the ability to listen. And to give you a nice metaphor, probably we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, which means we should listen twice as much as we speak. And since I did that, my conversations and my success, even in sales, became so much better. Because imagine you are in a conversation with your loved one or with a customer, and if you really listen with the intention to understand, what is the feeling you will generate by the other person? They say, the first time in my life somebody is really listening, and nobody is really interested in anybody else's opinion, but everybody wants to express him or herself, and everybody wants to be heard. Especially children and your employees and your loved ones, everybody. So this is really a very, very strong inspiration when we talk about the quality of communication. We should really, there is this old saying, this old proverb from the First Nation, from the Indians, from the American Indians. They said, be very careful that your tongue doesn't make you deaf. If we speak too much, we can't hear. So we should really try to be very, very cautious. Go into a conversation and tell yourself, my intention is I really want to understand. I really want to understand. And talking about First Nations, I learned something like a talking stick. You give somebody, in a really crucial conversation, you can give somebody a pen like I do right now, and you tell this individual, you keep the pen. And as long as you have the pen in your hand, you can speak. And we promise that we listen with empathy. And only when you have the feeling that you feel understood, you pass the
Yes.
pen to the other person. So this is principle behind that.
Yes. Very, very interesting, this metaphor. And as well, inspiring souls, only those who know the fire within them can ignite others. I
Yeah,
love this sentence.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
also a proverb from the old Latin. I think it's from Marc Aurel.
Mhm.
Probably not word by word, but the meaning. The meaning
Yes.
is when we talk about the vision of the decade of humanity. I talked about the vision of decade of humanity is a world where people really love what they do. What does it mean to love what you do? It means that you are passionate. And this is really interesting when you allow me to share that. When you
Yeah.
talk to neuroscientists, we are fully occupied with our thinking brain, with our subconscious mind. We are filled with, how can I say that, subconscious programs, so to say. We are not a computer, but somehow, our brain is a memory machine, and it learned because of experiences, observing, childhood, school, etc., etc. And when we talk from when we, what I learned from neuroscience, there is only one state where you can get rid of all the programs, and this state is called honeymoon.
Yeah.
Honeymoon. Once you are in love, everything is possible. Would you believe that? Do you remember how it, I have to think about, yes, yes. This feeling when you are in love is the world is full of colors. The world is full of energy. And there is, anything is possible because you are in this phase of, you are flooded with positive neurotransmitters. And this is exactly when you said about passion. I always like to say, imagine you would fall in love with what you do. Every morning you wake
Yeah.
up and you say, I have to see my loved one. This is what I wish for everybody. Probably this is a crazy wish, but I believe that there is something where you can find your purpose. And again, follow your joy. Try to ask yourself, is there a fire inside? Or is there only a little flame or nothing? If you don't love what you do on the long run, you should not do it because you waste your life, you waste your energy, you waste your health. And I say something very critical, and this is what I learned in 20 years ago in a lot of family therapies and with coaches. We as human beings are role models for others. And I am a father of 4 children. And once I realized and learned that my well being, my emotional state is a main criteria for my children, because children want to have happy parents, right?
See. Yeah.
And if parents are not happy, probably the children believe they are the reason. So therefore we have to, and this is really something I'm so passionate about. We have to take responsibility to find our own passion. And Steve Jobs once said, stay hungry, stay foolish, don't settle. Unless you have not found what makes you passionate, don't settle, stay hungry, stay foolish, and keep looking. This is so
Yeah.
important. Passion is the key. And passion is what I said, it's this joy, it's this fire, it's this, and this is probably again this honeymoon feeling, these butterflies in your stomach.
And is it about passion, your latest book you've written?
I have, now we talk about the commercial, now it's the advertising. Lead, Speak, Inspire is a textbook. You know, this something about these three elements. And I have a small book which took me 3 years because I thought, you know, a lot of people say, yes, Bert, I like the book, but how can I apply that? And when we talk about passion, people were asking, but how can I find my own purpose? And this book, Lead, Speak, Inspire, Inspiration book, is a book full of exercises. Full of exercises. So it's more a workbook, but I didn't call it workbook because work is nothing people like, but therefore I call it inspiration book. But, you know, I have a promise with this book. Because I promise, when you work properly, how can I say that? When you really work proper through all these exercises, I promise that you really, after doing that, you really know who you are in order to live accordingly. And this is the intention of this inspiration book, because this is the big challenge in life. You know, in order to how can I say that, to like what I do, to really love what I do, I have to find out who am I. And in my deepest belief, I always say everything starts from within. Everything you experience from the outside is a reflection from your inside. So if you want to change something on the outside, you have to start there. And this is the idea about the book, finding your passion. And I'm very happy to announce that the inspiration book is also available in English since only 4 weeks. And we just released it during my last stay in beautiful Portugal and at this really prestigious Nova Business School.
So, Bert, it was really a pleasure. And I want to emphasize that this book is really amazing. Amazing because of the examples you can give to all the readers, and as well because I've been teaching on trainings during the last 25 years, and this is one of the best books I read because of this attitude from you, and also inspires everyone who is going to read it. And for me, it was really a great pleasure to read it and to follow your activities as well at DCG Lab. And I would like to ask you, what are your next projects? What are you doing now with DCG Lab? And when you came to Portugal, tell us something about this.
Heitor, first of all, thank you for your nice and very kind words about the book. And sometimes I think probably you are too kind. But first of all, I want to say, probably we as a team have the chance to bring this book one day in Portuguese language. But I want to answer your question. DCG Lab, the owner or the man behind DCG Lab is Omid Asghari. And Omid Asghari is a friend, a soulmate, and also for me a source of inspiration. And because of Omid and all his efforts, we found the way to each other. And when you ask me about DCG Lab, I have to tell you a little story about a crazy young Persian individual, Omid Asghari, who I met in 2015 at a neuromarketing congress in Amsterdam, where I gave a keynote, probably a little bit different to the other ones, because already there I talked about humanity. I said, forget all the techniques, you remember who we are as human beings. And this man, the young Omid, spoke to me after my presentation, and he introduced himself. And he said, you know, I like very much what you said, and one day I want to bring you to Iran. And I have to tell you, 4 years ago, 2017, I spent a few days in Iran. I was able to give a lot of presentations, and I'm very happy to say that this book is available in Farsi, and you know, and in every bookstore in the entire country, beautiful country of Iran. And Omid is not only, you know, a friend and a soulmate, he is also very active at Nova Business School, doing his PhD there, and you know, when we talk about mutual interests and cooperation, we are always like a family, so to say. Yeah. And this is beautiful. And I want to contribute in the DCG lab, not only with the Lead, Speak, Inspire and Decade of Humanity, but also with the methodology of neuromerchandising, which was established by our company, and also with this EX, you know, we call it the employee experience. So there is a lot to do, but I once again, I want to say, or I want to give a big hug to our friend and partner Omid Asghari, who made that conversation of today happen.
Yes, for sure. If it wasn't Omid, maybe we couldn't met ourselves. Okay. So, Bert, thank you for the examples you have described and for your presence here in this conversation. And I wish you the best success. And maybe one of these days we can be together alive after the pandemic, or even during these pandemic times. Okay. I would ask you if you want to say something for the people who is listening to us.
Probably only 2 sentences. First sentence is obrigado, Heitor, for making it happen. It was a great pleasure for me as well, and I always enjoyed the time when we were together. And the message to everybody who is listening, you know, first of all, do not believe everything you think. Follow your heart, follow your passion, and don't let any doubt destroy your biggest dreams and visions. Life is too short to make a miserable face, and I really believe that, you know, the mind and the way you think has a lot of impact on what you receive. And to finish probably with a quote from Steve de Chazer, he said, you know, when you think about problems, you will always see problems. When you think about solutions, you will find solutions. And there is really, I think it's really a beautiful adventure, you know, when you start the journey for heroes or heroines, start the journey and find out who you are in order to live accordingly, a life full of passion and a life full of love and full of fulfillment. And then you will also be successful, because success is always a consequence of something else. Yes. So I wish you all the best, and I would love to keep in touch and you know, through you, or we are in a global village now because of the digital media and the techniques we have. We can stay connected, and it was a great pleasure, and thank you for your patience.
Yeah, that's why start with a man in the mirror. Once again, Bert, thank you very much. E a todos os nossos ouvintes, a todos os nossos amigos, quero agradecer a vossa presença, a vossa participação. Eu sei que muitos de vocês vão participando nas várias redes, tanto de perfis de Facebook como do YouTube. No entanto, eu só consigo apanhar aqui as questões colocadas no meu perfil de Facebook. Daí que não tínhamos tido a oportunidade de responder a muitas outras questões que eu sei que existirão. No entanto, ficará para uma próxima oportunidade. Por isso, mais uma vez, quero agradecer a vossa presença e a presença de Bert Martin Ohnemuller, que aqui esteve connosco. Thank you again, Bert. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye. Obrigado.
Bye.
Bye.